Hello again, Granny Glenis here. You must have surely heard of Pocahontas, the Red Indian princess? Well, I don't know whether you realise, but she was actually a true and real person. And so was Captain John Smith. However, the story I'm going to read to you, although it is based on truth, as a story, of course, it has had little bits of not such true stuff added to it to make it a more interesting story. However, we'll see how much you can pick out from it, and then I'll tell you at the end the true bits. Okay? Hope you enjoy it. The English sailing ship, the Susan Constant, was heading towards the New World, America. The leader of the expedition, Governor John Ratcliffe, stood on deck holding his pampered little pug dog, Percy. "There's gold in the New World," Ratcliffe said to himself, "and soon it will all be mine." Nearby stood the brave Captain John Smith. He'd been on many exciting voyages before and was looking forward to the start of a new adventure. Meanwhile, high on a cliff in the New World stood a young Indian girl called Pocahontas, meaning little mischief. As always, Meeko, an inquisitive raccoon, and Flit, a tiny hummingbird, were nearby. "Hurry, your father's waiting," called Pocahontas' friend Nakoma from her canoe in the river below. Pocahontas dived into the deep blue water and the two friends paddled homewards. Back at the Indian village, Pocahontas' father, Chief Powhatan, had some wonderful news for his daughter. "The brave warrior Cocoon has asked for your hand in marriage," he said. "I will give you the necklace your mother wore at our wedding, so that you may wear it at yours." Pocahontas wanted to obey her father's wishes, but Cocoon was so serious. She decided to go to the enchanted glade where she could talk to the ancient tree spirit, Grandmother Willow. Pocahontas told Grandmother Willow about Cocoon. She also told the wise spirit about a strange dream she kept having about a spinning arrow. "The arrow is pointing you down your path," said Grandmother Willow. "Listen to the spirits of the earth, the water and the sky, and they will guide you." Just then, Pocahontas felt the wind blowing through her hair. She climbed high into Grandmother Willow's branches to hear what it was telling her. As she looked out to sea, Pocahontas saw what seemed to be strange clouds in the distance. They were the sails of a ship. That ship, the one we know as the Susan Constant. Pocahontas leapt down and ran over to a rocky ledge to get a closer look. She saw that the ship had dropped anchor and that men were coming ashore. One was tall and handsome, and he was heading straight towards her. It was the captain, John Smith. As Pocahontas watched, the stranger climbed onto the rocky ledge and looked out across the beautiful landscape. Before Pocahontas could stop Meeko, he'd scampered over to meet the stranger. "Hello, little fellow," Smith said kindly, and handed a biscuit to the raccoon. Just then, someone called Smith's name, and he climbed down from the ledge. Pocahontas was left wondering about the mysterious stranger. She decided to follow him to find out more. And there is Captain Smith giving Meeko the raccoon his biscuit. Later that day, as Smith explored the New World, he came to a sparkling waterfall. On the other side of the cascading water, he saw a young Indian girl, Pocahontas. For a long moment, neither he nor Pocahontas moved. They stared at each other and knew that they were falling in love. That afternoon, Pocahontas taught Smith a few words of her language. Smith had thought that the Indians would be savages, but meeting Pocahontas changed his mind completely. He learned that her people loved the land and lived in harmony with it. While they talked, Meeko nuzzled through Smith's bag, looking for another biscuit. Instead, he found the captain's compass, which he carried off to a nearby tree. He'd find a hiding place for this little treasure. Meanwhile, Governor Ratcliffe had ordered his men to begin digging for gold. "It's got to be here somewhere," he roared as the settlers ripped up trees and dug up the ground. Cockum and another warrior, Namantak, were hiding in some nearby bushes. They watched in horror as their land was torn apart. When the settlers discovered them there, a fierce fight broke out and Namantak was badly wounded. Terrified, Cockum carried his friend back to their village. Later, when Pocahontas returned to the village, she found her people preparing for battle with the settlers. Their land was being destroyed by these invaders, and now Namantak had been wounded. They had to be stopped. "Please," Pocahontas begged her father, "try talking to the settlers instead of fighting them." "They do not want to talk," Chief Powhatan replied sternly. At that same moment, Smith was trying to convince Ratcliffe not to fight the Indians. But Ratcliffe was only interested in finding gold. "This is my land now," he cried, "and the Indians must be killed in order to get to the gold." That night, Pocahontas and Smith met in the enchanted glade, where she begged him to talk to her father. It was the only way to prevent a terrible battle. When Smith agreed, Pocahontas was delighted. But they didn't realise that they were not alone. Cockum had followed Pocahontas, and Thomas, a young settler, had followed Captain Smith. Suddenly, Cockum sprang from the bushes. Thomas, realising the warrior was about to attack Smith, fired his gun. As Cockum fell, he pulled Pocahontas' necklace from her neck. In an instant, he lay dead. Indian war cries sounded in the distance. "You must go, Thomas," Smith cried, and the frightened young settler fled back to his camp. Moments later, Indian warriors arrived and captured Smith. They took him and Cockum's body back to their village. Chief Powhatan, believing Smith was responsible for Cockum's death, ordered that Smith was to be killed at sunrise. Later, Pocahontas managed to sneak into the hut where Smith was being held prisoner. "I'm so sorry," she wept. "If we had never met, none of this would have happened. But I can't leave you now." You never will, Smith assured her. No matter what happens to me, I'll always be with you in my heart forever. Heartbroken, Pocahontas went to see Grandmother Willow again. Suddenly, Miko handed Pocahontas Smith's compass, which he had recovered from its hiding place. As Pocahontas gazed at the needle of the compass, she felt her heart leap. Now she understood. This was the spinning arrow from her dream. Pocahontas knew what she must do. At the Indian village, Chief Powhatan held his club above Smith's head. The settlers, led by Ratcliffe, were approaching. "Stop!" cried Pocahontas, racing forward and throwing herself across Smith's body to protect him. "If you kill him, you'll have to kill me too. Look where hatred has brought us," she said. Chief Powhatan suddenly realised his daughter was speaking the truth and ordered Smith's release. As the Indians lowered their weapons, Ratcliffe saw his chance. "Fire!" he cried. But the settlers were tired of his greed and cruelty, and they also lowered their weapons. Enraged, Ratcliffe grabbed a gun, aimed it at Chief Powhatan, and fired it. Smith bravely flung himself in front of the chief, and the bullet hit him instead. The angry settlers surrounded Ratcliffe. They bound him in chains and marched him back to the Susan Constant. A few days later, the Susan Constant was ready to set sail. The wounded Smith lay on a stretcher while Pocahontas knelt beside him. She was wearing her mother's necklace that Percy and Miko had found in the wood. Smith had to return to England if he was to survive. "I can't leave you here," he said. "You never will," Pocahontas replied, reminding him of his own words. "I will always be with you in my heart forever." Pocahontas and John Smith had shown that different peoples could live together in peace, but she knew that she must stay to try and keep this newfound friendship and understanding alive. At last, Pocahontas had found her one true path. And although the story ends there, the facts are a little different. Pocahontas was born in 1596. Unfortunately, although she went to England to be with her beloved captain, she died of an ordinary illness, but that her own people didn't know, and so she succumbed to it. Just a simple case of the flu. And in 1617, at only 21 years of age, Pocahontas died. If you want to prove to yourselves that this is really and truly a true story, whenever you can, visit the St. George's Church graveyard in a place called Gravesend, a town in the south of England. There you will find the headstone marking Pocahontas' grave. I hope you enjoyed the story. I enjoyed reading it to you. I'll read you another one next week. Okay? Bye for now.